Good day, Ma'am Sherlyn in Kapkaban. And by the way, I am Bilutindos Ramon, one of the member of Group 3, and we're going to discuss about the Chapter 8. And Ma'am, allow me to use my back camera because I am using a laptop and I am going to screen record and audio record. Then I am going to video this cell phone, so I cannot show my face during the report. So allow me to use the back camera, ma'am. Thank you. So we will going now to proceed our report.
Okay, good day ma'am. Here is our prepared presentation about the topic that you given to us, and it's about in chapter 8. So first, I would like to introduce my group mates. There are Rose Jillian Aceves, Mark Guar, Jay Rivera, Albi May Rivera, Johannes Tumapon, Rachel Marchand, and Dave Kenneth Banwa. So our topic is Chapter 8, Sustaining Biodiversity, Saving Species, and Ecosystem Services. So, sustaining biodiversity, it means that we need to preserve and taking care of our nature and our um, the species, mga animals, organisms nga makatabang nga naay serbisyo para sa atoa. So, kinahanglan nato silang luwason nga mo preserve and dili sila ma-extinct or being threatened because nako kay sila tabang nato nga mabalance ang atong ecosystem and our biodiversity because uban na nila is ato po silang silbing pagkaon, like example kining mga wild animals, pwede na to silang ma-hunt and pwede na to silang kanon, but in the other side ato silang gihinay-hinay og threatened and nakagamay ang ilang numbers. So we need to save them, we need to sustain that their species will last same as people. So dili na to i-dominate ang earth, kita-kita ra ang mga puyo. So we need to luwasan nato sila, we need to kaning atagan pa nato sila space nga puyo din sa kalibutan. Okay, so here are the key questions that we can encounter in this presentation. So in my part, in 8.1, so the question is, what role do humans play in the loss of species and ecosystem services? And 8.2, why should we try to sustain wild species and ecosystem services they provide? How do humans accelerate species extinction and degradation of ecosystem services? How can we sustain wild species and the ecosystem services they provide? So those are the questions that will be answered in later on. Okay, so here is the core study of our presentation. So I will be the first one to report, and by the way, I am Ramon Bilotindas, one of the member of the group 3. So let's start course case study. Where have all the honeybees gone? So asa na day ay napadulong ang mga honeybees? Ang mga honeybees is they provide honeys from the flowers, mga bulak sa mga tanong. Ilan na silang isuyog and then ilang gibutang sa ilang hive, sa ilahang puloy anan, and ilan na siyang stock dito. Then if ato na siya makita, so pwede na ito siyang paon as a honey, pwede na ito isabol sa atong pagpaswitan sa atong mga food and drinks, and na na siya tamban. So okay, in meadows, forests, farm fields, and gardens around the world, industry used honeybees fleet from one flowering plant to another, collecting nectar and pollen they take back to their hives. So, akong istorya lagi, so ang mga honeybee is sila ng everyday, makita na sila nga maglupad-lupad sa mga namulak sa mga tanong, mga plant, and then sila nang suyupon dito sa may flower, kuwaon nila tong liquid ya, kanang duga sa flower, and then ilahan ang stock sa ilahang lawas, then ila nang indalon balik sa ilahang balay, and then ila nang stock dito sa ilahang ay mga cells, mga division dito sa ilahang hive, and then stock nila dito, and after time, so mahimo po to siyang baby o dili siya makitaan o kining tao. So, and there are parts of our places nga naay nag-culture o mga bees lahang utangan o mga sa pinipurag cage na dito mo padulong mo dito mag-stack sa mga bee, so magdumdum sila dito. So dako kay tabang ang mga honeybee, not just magtabang siya o hatag na to o kanang dugos ani. So but at the same time ang sila po ng rason nganong na mamunga ang mga tanom, it's because from one flower to another, so makakuadto sila sa male nga flower and madala nila ang pollen grain, and then pag-transfer nila into other flower which is a female flower sa plant, dito is mapunta ang pollen grain dito, then ma-develop na siya and mahimo na siyang bunga. So daghang kayong purpose ang honeybee. So ako kasi servisyo sa atong kuan kay dili man nato kaya if ng for example if na kay plant na kay crop kung diha na kinahanglan siyang i-mate ang male o female. So instead nga kanang ikaw mismo may kuan mag-pollinate, so dako na kay tabang og manaan yung mga pollinator, yung bees, mga bugs. So dako kini sila tabang nga flower and mo produce mga himong prutas or kani mag-produce na into plant ang into food ang usa ka plant. So siya tabang na to and ako ang kanang pag-servisyo nila para ato. So okay, these provide us one of nature's most important ecosystem services, which is pollination. So pollinate ka ng transfer sa pollen grain into the female flower. So dito mag-produce na siya dito, mahimo na siyang bunga. And pag bunga na niya, so it's either fruit trees na siya. So pag kita na to, so ato na makaon. So lamig na kayong kwaon na makita ni mga dako na or hinog na ang usa ka plant. And then there's called colony collapse. So nakikatawag og colony collapse. So kung sala ni siya. So ang colony collapse is kanang kaning at sa time in USA and Africa, so there's a winter na season na hitabo, and then expected nila nga mobalik ang bees in pag-spring. So nawala, ni-collapse, wala sila kabalo og why it happened, anong na-enact to siya. So ang ilahang hypothesis ato is siguro na na-freeze ang mga bees mo nang wala sila kabalik sa ilang hive, wala nang kabalik og balik sa ecosystem kay dili man ka-sustain ang mga honeybees during winter. So wala man sila makaon, so kay puros man na nag-snow, so wala sila makaon, so dili sila ka-produce o dili sila ka-pollinate sa mga kaning mga flower o mga plants, so dili nila mag-pollinate. So motongan natingala ang mga scientists nganong nawala na ang wala mabalik, so ni-collapse itong pagkahitabua. So okay, 8.1, what role do human plays in the loss of species and ecosystem? So unsay atong papel nganong o giunsa nato nganong kaning nawala ang nagkahinay o kawala, nagka-endangered ang mga species sa honeybees, sa mga wildlife species, anong mga panalagsara na ito makita anong nawala. So do we have relation anong nawala na sila? So talking to that, so extinction are natural but sometimes they increase sharply. So okay ra, natural ra kayo ang pag-extinct sa mawala ang usa ka species, pero if magkadagka na siya kung mas apil na ang ubang species na mawala, so it's another istoryahon na po na siya. So lahi na, so lain-lain og mga role ang mga species diri in Earth. So they balance the ecosystem as food. They are prey makatabang nabuhi sila as a food of other species. So dako na kay na sila tabang. And natural na siya mawala, but kung daghan na di kayang magkawala, so dako na kay na siyang problema. Maybe the problem is not just maybe but surely na tungod sa mga tao. So pag-expand sa population, pag-urbanize, pag-industrialize sa mga ilahang habitat. So one of the reason na nung na-loss ng ilahang kuhan, nagka-endangered sila, nagka-na-extinct sila because of destruction. Dahil nahimo ng into forest, ilahang habitat, then replaced by buildings, houses. So muna nangawala sila. So if dili na sila ka-stay na nga place because wala na sila yung food, so they will migrate or they will die. Wala na sila yung tao. So that's the reason wala sila. So okay, there's thing called biological extinction. What is biological extinction? It is species that no longer be found anywhere on the earth. So biological is wala na dyan bisag isang nabilin na ni survive on earth. So nakurot na siya kawala. So that is called biological extinction. Wala na dyan bisag usang na nabilin. So nakurot na dyan ka hanaw ang tanan, pain. So mawala na sila, nakamatay o kurot. And other one is mass extinction. The extinction of many species in a relatively short period of geologic time is called mass extinction. So, extinction, nawala na siya through night event na nahitabo, but then, pili na siya yung all over the earth na nawala. So, nawala na siya in certain place, but we can found it in other places on earth. So, makita na nato sila dito. So, in a short period of time, nawala, nasunog pa ang mga forest, or na-event volcanic eruption na nakukay pa explosion na kurot ang ila na nakuha na ng mga ashes ang ilahang ecosystem. So mana siya gitawag og mass extinction. So nahanaw ang ilahang species in that certain area lang, really tanan. Okay, some human activities cause extinction and threaten ecosystem. So naay mga atong mga activity na muy hinungdan na nang extinct or na-threaten or endangered ang ilahang species. So daghan tayong reason anong kay human activities na may rason anong nangawala ang ilahang lahi and ang ilang pagservisyo sa atoa. So one of that is urbanization, modernization, and industrialize, buildings, houses, and from forest, they turn it into agricultural farm. And then, nawala na sila. So, nagkagamay ang ilahang habitat. And then, so, dili na sila nakasusten ng ilang food. So, mawala na sila. Okay. Scientists who study extinction base much of their work on an estimated background extinction rate. Okay, so mga scientists nag-study about the extinction. So estimate sila background extinction rate equivalent siya the rate that existed before modern humans evolved some 200 years ago. So the scientists estimate na one species kada tuig or usa ka milyon na wild species nga nagpuyo sa kalibutan. So, ilan na silang ilahan ang estimate para makuha na estimate lang din exact. So, makuha ang kung pila ang na-extinct every year annually and pila ka bukang species ang nawala. So, muna ilahang i-study. Geological fossils and the reactions of during which 50 to 90% of species appear to have been extinct. So, nangawala ang ilahang lahi. the background extinction. Okay, so we are done with it. Then, in the words of biodiversity expert Edward E. Wilson, so he is one of the kanang nag-study ani na about sa extinction niya na siya na iyahang quote. The natural world is everywhere disappearing before our eyes. So, ang mga natural things nga naa dinhi sa kalibutan nag-exist is nauna before ta nabuhay, before nabuha ang mata. So, daghan na kayang mga panghitabo dinhi sa earth before we exist. So, sa ato pang mga kanununuan, sa mga pila na ka million years ago, so, wala kabalo sa mga species nga ni live diri sa atong kalibutan, and wala po naka-record what particular mga species ang naa diri yung earth. So, may lang tang na-record ang mga fossils kung unsa ng mga species sa animals, kung sala na siya nga mga gagmay mga species nga ni puyo din sa atong kalibutan, like they said about sa dinosaurs, kapag hit atong asteroid, so dito nawala ang mga dinosaur, dito na extinct. So, and mga scientists, mga geologists, nag-study ana, and ilang ipanguha ang mga fossils, like nagulong silang mga buko, then ilang try to kaning panog 3D animation nga i-forma ang kung unsa ang position sa mga bukog ni ilang i-forma, and then ilang gikaman 3D na mao na ang iyang paano sa iyang structure sa lawas, and kung unsa lang siya nga species. Okay. So, there are scientists from around the world who conducted study, which is called the 2005 Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, and they estimated the current annual rate of species extinction at least 100 to 1,000. So, ang current annual rate sa datuig na species na mo extinct is 100 to 1,000, and estimated background na siya. Then, they identified that 2 million species pang ilahang na nakita na ilhan beneath the earth. So, dahil pang wala mga discover, dahil pang mga new need to discover, like sa pang bodies of water sa dagat. So, mabaw pang ilahang nanay ng ato, lalong kayong party, like sa French, na dito Mariana Trench. Unay nakakuha na dito ng mga scientists, pero wala din nila ma-discover the whole area. It's because of the pressure, and dili din siya madala baling dakwa. It's really huge ocean. So dili, and the deep is kanang dili na ka maglisod na kaginhawa dito sa ilalom. So wala pa dyan siya kay ma-discover, and daghan pa dyan kay even din sa ato ang diri sa terrestrial, sa mga forest, diri sa surface sa earth, wala pa gyud gani kayo ma-discover. So there are a lot more of discoveries nga ilahang i-take. And let's continue. For example, they assume that there are 10 million species on earth. So just example lang, 10 million species on earth ang naa. And at the background of extinction rate of 1 species per million per year. So usa ka species kada usa ka milyon kada tuig, and about 10 species would disappear naturally each year. So pulo ka buok species ang mawala kada tuig. So kung mga 10,000 ka buok mawalaan siya kada tuig niya, imagine pila na ka tuig ang pila na ka million years ang nilabay atong mga panahon nga nagsugod og exist ang mga species, o takabalog unsala ng mga species. And so 10 species would disappear naturally each year. And today estimated rate of 100 to 1,000 times background rate, we are losing between 1,000 to 10,000 species per year. So ma-imagine mo na baling daghana sa species nga wala pa gani nato jud siya makit-an o sa atong mga mata halos kita tanan wala pa'y nakakitaanan niya, but wala nangawala na hinuon sila. So jutay ra ang mga nakitaan, it's because of the mga distractions, wala na sila habitat nga dili sila mo fit in. So mo na nangawala sila. So imagine baling daghana nga species nga wala pa nato na meet, wala nato nakita pero nangawala na. So we need to take action nga i-preserve nato. So but dili mo gyud siya ma-implement, it's because of the need sa mga people, like kanang pagpadako sa mga agricultural area, agricultural field para pod sa ato nga mabuhi pud ta. So bahala na og magka kuha ng mga species mga wala basta mga tao mabuhi, dili man gyud siya mahimo kay bisag naay mo implement ang mga tao is gahi man gyud og ulo, dili man gyud malikayan. So igo na lang tang ma-study if ever makita nato kung unsa ang nabilin nga mga species. So we need to preserve, remain in captivity and padaghanon. So daghan yung mubantay ana, the government should implement along if dagang mga species na nabuhi in that certain forest or places, so they need to be protected para po nga na sila serbisyo sa ato and makita po nato kung unsa ang ilahang kayang buhaton sa atong sa ecosystem and para po sa tao. Okay. The extinction rate is likely to rise at least 10,000 times. So, magkataas na po. Background rate. So, 10,000 times background rate na po. Mostly because of habitat loss and degradation. So, maulagin eh. So, habitat loss, degradation, climate change, ocean acidification, and other environmentally harmful effects of human activities. So, maunang nangawala ang mga nag-extinct ang mga species nga wala pa nato mailhan. It's because of us, people. So, mga tao is dili makontento sa ilahang panginahanglanon, dili makontento. So, for example, na yung mga dato, nipalit sila og mga area nga forest pa siya. So, ang forest, kung dili nato siya i-discover, di nato makitaan kung unsay mga species nagpuyo dito. So, if ato na siyang para sa atong gusto ra nga makakwarta ta, modernize, ma-urbanize, ma-industrialize ang usa ka place. So atong so mainly ang mga species imong puyo dyan na siya sa mga habitable area like mga forest inana. So daghan kayo dito mga species nagpuyo. So if ipang-cut down nato ang mga trees, so ma-distract sila and ngita sila gabalhinan, and if they are not compatible nga mubalhin kay dili pa sila ka-adapt sa we need to consider ng mga sa temperature, sa klima. So mo na sa hinungdan nga nung distracted sila, mawala mga matay sila. So jutay ang mo survive, then they will be habit na ma-instinct. So habitat loss, so mawalaan sila og kapuy-an and degradation nga kanang mapanas na gyud. And usa pa na is ang klima karon nga nagkausog na, so bali nang inita and na po'y time nga bali pong bugnawa. So dili sila ka-adapt and that will cause them death and ocean acidification. So usa po na siya, so na yung mga oil spill, na yung mga contamination sa mga substance nga makakuanog acidic. So na yung mga chemicals, so mga punta dito. So usa po siya nga ang mga species in bodies of water mga matay and dili na to siya maabtan. And daghan pang mga harmful effects sa human activities like sa mga gira, mga bombing explosion. So daghan kaayo jud and dili na to ma-state tanan. So ang ato ra gyud is kung kaya na tong maprotektahan, ma-preserve, so we need to do it para sa ilahang pagpuyo dire and dako sila serbisyo sa ato. Okay, so next, if there were 10 million species on the earth, then about 10,000 species would be expected to disappear each year. So baling daghana, if naaman dagway 10 million ka species nga naa dinhi sa earth, then 1,000 ka species nga mawala kada tuig. So if times nimo nag 10 million years, so dako kayo, and ang average niya is 274 species per day or about 11 every hour ra. So baling daghana. Okay. Mga scientists nag-ingon, at the end of this century, most big carnivorous cats including cheetahs, tigers, and lions will probably exist only in zoos and small wildlife sanctuaries. So, because of the habitat loss, so there are wildlife species nga i-captivity nila ilahang padaghanon and na ibutang nila protected area like mga zoo. So ato na lang nato sila makitaan dito, mga small mga wildlife sanctuary. And most elephants, rhinoceros, gorillas, chimpanzees, and orangutans will likely disappear sa mga wild. So mga wala na hinon sila dito, it's because na mga taong maghunt anak nila and naay part ra sa anak nga species nga ilaharang kwaon, ilaharang dili nila patyon but ilang kwaon pero magsuffer ang usa ka species. So mo na siyang mga matay. So paghunting down sa mga hunters, so mo na yung nag-threaten sa ilahang kinabuhi and mo na hinungdan nga decline ang ilahang numbers. Okay. According to biodiversity researchers Edward O. Wilson and Stuart Pym, at this extinction rate, at least 25% and as many as 50% of the world's roughly 2 million identified animals and plant species could vanish from the wild by the end of the century, along with many of the millions of unidentified species. So niingon sila nga sa 2 million identified animal species nga naa will be vanished karon na pag-end sa century. And apil na ang katong wala pang mga naili nga mga species nga naa diri nagpuyo sa Earth. So grabe kaayo. Large scale loss of species would also impair some of the Earth's vital ecosystem services, including air and water purification, natural pest control, and pollination. So kung mag-istorya na yung mga dinagkuay nga kanang serbisyo nga nahatag sa may kumpara na to sa ilahang nahatag na serbisyo sa ecosystem. So diri na ning mga grabing serbisyo nga ilahang mawala, so, including the air and water purification. So mga wala na mga natural pest control like atong mga predator, mga prey nga mo sila po mismo mo kanang mo patay, mo balance sa kaning pag-infestation sa mga pest. And usa pa na is kung mawala na ang mga ubang mga species like bees, mga bees, so wala na ang tawag kanang pollination. So magkajutay na ang pagka-produce og mga food, mga pagbulak sa mga like especially mga fruit trees. So mga wala na siya, so magkajutay ang atong pagkaon, so kita na pud ang mag-suffer. Okay. According to 2005 Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, 15 out of 24 of Earth's major ecosystem services are declined. So 15 pa kabuok sa 24 ang mga majors, mga dagko nga naghatag og serbisyo, ang nilesen na ang ilahang serbisyo nga nahatag. So hapit na siya maabot og 24, hapit na mahurot og kakwantanan, and kita na mag-suffer ana after time. So let's proceed to Science Focus 8.1, estimating extinction rates. So there are 3 extinction rate nga ato ang makita. So scientists who try to catalog extinctions estimate past extinction rates and project future extinction rates face 3 problems. So sa niaging nga mga extinction rates ato ilahang istorya na ko kanina, so naay tulo pud ka buok problema. So first, because the natural extinction of species typically takes a very long time and it is difficult to document. So Bali ng dugay ang panahon ng niagi, so walay naka-document, walay naka-record kung unsa tong mga previous mga species nga naa diri sa kalibutan. So mo nang galisod sila og identify, galisod sila og bana-bana estimate kung pila ka rate ang mga mawala. So mo na karon nila ang ibuhat is estimate na lamang nila. Secondly, we have identified only about 2 millions of the world's estimated 7 to 10 million and perhaps as many as of 100 million species. So, mao pa na ilahang na-identify sa 2 million nga na estimated nila. And jutay pa kayo ang wala jud nila, ay dagan pa kayo ang wala pa jud nila ma-discover. Pangatulo, scientists know little about the ecological roles of the most species have been identified. So, nana sila'y idea kung unsalay role sa usa ka species nga ilang nailhan dinhi karon sa kalibutan. Okay. Critical thinking, does the fact that extinction rates can only be estimated make them unreliable? Why or why not? So, kini nga critical thinking, nag-iwan ba ni siya nga extinction rate, ma-estimate ra ba and makatuhuan na ba, makarely na ba taan eh. So, niya na si Wilson and Pim, another extinction expert, nag-consider nga ang extinction rate is 10,000 times background extinction rate to be low for several reasons. So, una, first, both the rate of extinction and the resulting threats to ecosystem services are likely to increase sharply during next 50 to 100 years because of the harmful environment impacts rapidly growing human population. So, usa na dyan ang mga rason is kanang ato sa tao jud is ang atong pag-populate, pag-increase sa population sa tao, pag-increase sa population sa tao, ni connect pod ang pag-increase sa kining economic needs. So, like the food, so, trabaho. So, kay dagan man kaya ang population, dili man ma-sustain, mahatagan tanan og pagkaon is because jutay ra ang area nga nag-produce og pagkaon, but daghan kaya ang mukaon and everyday na siya. So, kinahanglan mo expand na pod og mga agricultural field. So, ang mga forest nato, ang mga area nga naay nagpuyo nga mga other species. So, ma-distract sila dito. So, sila na po ang mawalaan o habitat is because of us, tungod sa ato ang panginahanglan na po. So, it will be replaced into buildings, houses, mga dagko nga industry. So, tungod na nato. So, pag taas anak niya, so, nagkainit na po ang atong kalibutan, mo na po hinungdan nga nung ang nag-isip na po adjust ang mga other species mo na karon nga ang ilahang gingon sa mga expert nga after 50 to 100 years tungod sa mga problema din sa ato ang environment, mo na siya maghinungdan nga kanang magkajutay sila, magka-extinct. Second, the current and projected extinction rates in the world's diversity hotspot areas that are highly endangered centers of biodiversity are much higher than the global average. So, ang ilang projected extinction sa atong sa biodiversity is highly endangered siya, highly endangered kaysa taas pa kaysa global average. Third, we are eliminating, degrading, fragmenting, and simplifying many biological diverse environments, including tropical forests, coral reefs, wetlands, and sanctuaries. So, sunod, atong nga eliminate, atong nawala, atong including na ana ang mga tropical forest, tungod lagi sa pagka-overpopulation na sa tao. So, atong giilisdan ang mga habitable sa mga other species, atong convert into industrialized place. So, mo nang nahinungdan nga nung anong nangawala sila. So, mo na yung problema nga giingon sa mga expert. Okay. So, here, endangered and threatened species are ecological smoke alarm. So it was classified the different animals nga mga threatened, and gagmay na kayo ang numbers nga nahibilin sa ila, and only found in a few countries na lang, few places na lang, and naa na lang sila dito, jutay na lang kayo ang um, ilahang numbers dito sa ilang kaparehas ng species. So, okay, let's identify what is endangered species. So, endangered species has a few individual survivors nga nahibilin anang a certain place, and soon, kung madili na sila maprotektahan, dili na sila mapadaghan, di na sila matagan og ilahang habitable area, so they will be soon to be extinct. So threatened species such as cheetah, loggerhead, sea turtle, and it still have enough remaining individuals to survive in the short term. So gamay na lang jud kayo ilang panahon. It's because they are now threatened. Wala delikado ilang panginabuhi. They have enough area nga ilahang habitable, but then because of there are people nga kuhaon sila because of kanang panginahanglan. So example na lang is kana sa West Philippine Sea. So dito manguha ang mga Chinese o mga marine species nga kay kuno mga magamit nila ang tambal, like katong sa shark fin, kining fin, silang gikuha kay for medicinal purposes. So imbes nga mudaghan sila, na sila saktong place nga ato sila makapadaghan, but ang mga tao na pud mo'y nag-hunt down nila. So mo nang nagkajutay na pud ang ilahang numbers, mao nang they are soon to be not endangered but extinct na pud. Okay, so in figure 8.2 in the next slide, so there are 4 of the 21,000 species listed in 2013 by International Union for Conservation of Natural as critically endangered or threatened. So here. So mao ni sila. So wala pa gyud ta kakita ani actually, but mo ni gingon sa mga expert nga sa katong kining adit sa organization, but kining as research center. So mo ni ang mga endangered na nga mga species. A kining usa kining kaning wolf okay. A Mexican gray wolf. So 42, about 42 in the forest of Arizona and New Mexico. So 42 na lang kabuk ang ilahang numbers na naa dito na buhi karon. So secondly is kining California condor, mura siya pabo. I think dako kay ni siya nga pagka animal. So 226 na lang in the southwestern United States. So up from 9 in 19. So jutay na lang kayo. Kaning usa is whooping crane, 437 in North America. So mura siya og kuan ng mura siya og talabong din sa tuwa, but if we can see this actually, I think taas siguro ni siya, katagas mo kay siya tiil. And then is the next one is Sumatran tiger, no more than 500 on the Indonesian and is in land of Sumatra. So jutay na lang kaayo. So they are endangered na kaayo. So mo ni ang mga pipila sa mga listed species na record sa katong International Union for Conservation sa Nature. So mo na lang na jutay na lang kaayo ang mga species nga nahibilin, and nilang numbers for this jutay na lang kayo. So some species have characterized that increase their chances of becoming extinct. So naapod in the next figure, naapod makita nato ang mga pipila kabuok species nga kanang higher chances nga ma-extinct na pud sila. So what are they? So before that, we need to see this, analyze the word, the thought that being made by one of the experts, Edward O. Wilson. He says, in a quote, "The first animal species to go are the big, the slow, the tasty, and those with valuable parts such as tusk and skin." So sama sa akong gisulti ganina, like katong sharks nga naay fin, so they are um large animals, large um kind of mga species. So ang mauna ko no, katong mga slow, katong mga dagko, and katong mga lamion. Why? They will be threatened by the human. So pangwao na sila i-hunt, it's because dako kay sila value para sa tao, pwedeng medicine, pwedeng i-food, or gamiton nila ng skin para ihimong mga product. And mo na siya hinungdan nga nung ma-extinct ang mga animal, instead nga padagkan paunta sila, but they are used by people tungod sa kagustuhan sa mga tao. So mo nagipabot ni Edward O. Wilson na ang mauna is ang slow o ang dagko o kanang mga lamion. Okay, they will be hand down, they will use for
2 minutes na.
product. Mo silang mga product. So last part nako is kaning classification sa mga mag-instinct. So first one is the blue whale, giant panda, rhinoceros. So kani sila mo'y examples, mga una o kawala. So blue whale, rhinoceros, katong rhinoceros na found in the next reporter, gikat ang katong ay sungay niya din sa tubangan, and wala rapat siya, but kasuffer ang panda. Kani, so panda, so mo na siya usa sa mawala. And then elephant, seal, desert pupfish, can siguro kani, and Bengal tiger, bald eagle, katong sa America siguro ni makita yung bald eagle nga color white ang iyang ulo. Then the rare African violets or orchids ni siya nga mawala. Kining nga turtle mawala pod, rhinoceros, and kining California condor. No? The Florida panther. So usa ni siya sa mga family sa iring nga mawala, ma-extinct. So mga tsada, mga lamion, o mga dagko, umoy mauna o kawala. So that ends to my part, and the report will be continued by Miss Rosalyn Aceves. So thank you, ma'am, and thank you for listening.
So, good day everyone. My name is Rosalyn Aceves, and I am the next presenter and of Group 3. And my topic is all about the concept 8.2. So the title is, why should we try to sustain wild species and ecosystem services they provide? So concept 8.2, we should avoid speeding up the extinction of wild species because of the ecosystem and economic services they provide. So kani nga mga species, need na to siya avoid nga mawala or maghinay nga mawala. It's because naani sila yung mga economic services nga mahatag po nato, which is kita ra Japon ang magpahimulos. And other reason, it can take millions of years for nature to recover from large-scale extinction. So, million of years pa, usa pa maka-build na po duglain nga species. So, if magkawala sila, so sa mga years nga wala sila, wala na tayo mga species nga makatag na tuong services. And also, one of the reason nga i-avoid na to ang pagkawala, pagkadali silang pagkawala is because many people believe that species have a right to exist regardless of their usefulness to us. So aside from the fact nga na sila yung mahatag na to, or na sila yung services nga mahatag na to, they also have the right to exist, just like us. So, according to the World Wildlife Fund, or the WWF, only 50,000 to 60,000 orangutans remain in the wild, and most of them in the tropical forest of Borneo, Asia, which is the Asia's largest island. So these highly intelligent animals are disappearing at an estimated rate of 1,000 to 2,000 per year. So, nganong nagkawala man ni nga ang mga orangutans? It's because ang ilang puloy-an, which is the tropical rainforest, is gipangkuha or gipangputol ang mga kahoy because of the plantations of palm oils and that supply palm oil nga gigamit para sa mga pagproduce og cosmetics and biodiesel fuels. So, other reason is that their numbers are also declining because they bear young only about once every 80 years. So imagine, ang mga orangutans is only manganak ra sila after or only 80 years. So dugay. So if sila mangawala, na magkahinay ang magkawala ilang population, so na posibilidad nga mawala dyan sila, they become extinct because dugay sila ang ilahang reproduction. And another reason for their decline is the smuggling. An illegally smuggled live orangutan sells for a street price of up to $10,000. Without urgent protective action, the endangered orangutan may disappear in the wild within the next 2 decades. So, does it matter that orangutans might soon become extinct, largely due to human activities, or that some unknown insect or plant species may meet the same fate? So, new species eventually evolved to take the places of those species lost through mass extinction. So, oo, naagyapoy mapuli nga mga species nga bag-o kung para atong nangawala nga mga species. Pero kinahanglan jud po nato siya nga i-avoid. So, according to biologists, there are 3 major reasons why we should work to prevent our activities from causing or hastening the extinction of other species. So first, the world species provide a vital ecosystem service that help to keep us alive and support our economies. So, according to them, ang mga species kuno is importante para nato kay kini makasuporta sa atong ekonomiya or panginabuhian. So in what way? So like for example, we depend on honeybees o ubang mga insects for pollination sa atong mga tanom ug sa lain pang mga species like sa birds, amphibians, like our frogs, spider, para sa natural nga makontrol ang uban mga harmful insects. So kung mga wala ni nga mga species or magkagamay ang ilang population samot na tong mga pinaka-importante nga species, we're not just degrading the ecosystem services they provide, but it's like we are making ourselves in a situation nga kadaot nato because remember, peoples are the one who benefited the most of what our ecosystem can provide. So the second major reason for preventing extinctions caused hastened by human activities is that many species also contribute to economic services on which we depend. So Tungod kay daghan mga plant species nga nakahatag og dungag ekonomiya like sa food crops, plywood, lumber, and paper from tree nga kitang mga tawo ang nagpahimulos. So according to the biologist Edward O. Wilson, carelessly and rapidly eliminating species that make up an essential part of the world's biodiversity is like burning millions of books that we have never read. Because kani nga mga species nga posibleng mga wala tungod nato, dako ang ikatabang pod sa atoa, and some of this nga makaayo sa atoa. So, if ato ni silang dili na to ma-avoid ang pagkawala nila, pagka himong extinct for this mga species is ingon pa ni Edward O. Wilson nga it's like we are burning millions of books that we have never read because kani sila dako kay ikatabang sa atoa, and if mga wala sila, we have a big loss. So for example, bioprospectors are the scientists who search tropical forests and other ecosystem to find plants and animals that we can use to make medicinal drugs. Kining ginatawag nga bioprospectors, mao ni sila ang mga scientist nga ga-search sa atong tropical forest para mangita og plants or tanom and animals nga magamit nato to make medicinal drugs. And according to United Nations University report, 62% ang sa mga cancer drugs or tambal nga gigamit to cure cancer is na-discover sa mga bioprospectors. Bisan pa sa ilang medicinal o properties nga mahatag, less than 0.5% of the world's known plant species ang nasusi para sa medicinal properties nga ilang ma-provide. So, another economic benefit that can be gained through preserving species and their habitats is the revenues from the ecotourism. So, ang ecotourism ga-generate more than $1 million per minute in tourist expenditures worldwide. So, million ang makuha sa ecotourism by preserving this species kaysa pamatyon sila for another purposes. Like, for example, one of this, as stated by the conservation biologist Michael Sole, he estimated that a male lion living to age 7 generates about $515,000 through ecotourism in Kenya, but only about $10,000 if it is killed by its skin. So, mas dako if ato ang ma-preserve ang kaning lion. It's because if ato siya sa atong ecotourism mapunta, naidako nga mas dako ang income kaysa ato ni siyang kaysa pamatyon sila, like naitabuin nga gipatay sila for its skin nga only $10,000 ra ang ilang makuha. So that's why we should have to conserve this species instead of killing them tungod kay dili lang sa naa sila katungod mo exist, but also because of the help that they can provide for us to live. So, a third major reason for not hastening extinctions through our activities is that a sharp reduction in biodiversity will hinder speciation. So, giingon there is a third major reason for not hastening extinction through our activities is that a sharp reduction in biodiversity will hinder speciation. So, if mawala na atong mga, like sa atong tropical rainforest, which is atong tropical rainforest is sila ang naay very diverse because tagan sila didto nga mga species ang gapuyo. So if ma-reduce ang atong tropical rainforest, so syempre ang mga species nga na nagpuyo didto posible nga mga wala or mga matay pud sila because wala na sila ikapuy-an. So if mahitabo na ngayon anang mawala na sila kapuy-an kay ilahang mga ang atong forest is gipang putol for industrial purposes, syempre wala na ay mabuhi nga species. So it will take 5 million, and remember it will take 5 million to 10 million years for natural speciation to rebuild the biodiversity. So that is likely to be lost during the century as a result of human activity. So it will take millions of years for natural speciation to rebuild the biodiversity. So as a result sa mga activities nga gibuhat sa mga tao, so if it happens nga mahasan ang pagkawala sa mga species, as a result kita ra Japon nga mga tao ang mag-suffer. So fourth, many people believe that wild species have a right to exist regardless of their usefulness to us. So as what I have said earlier, nga i-conserve nato ning mga species ecosystem because of their help nga ma-contribute nato, but not because of their help nga ma-contribute nato, but also because they also have the right to exist or the right to live. So according to this worldview, we have an ethical responsibility to protect the earth species from becoming extinct tungod ra pod sa atong mga activities nga dili maayo. So let's consider this in connection to species and ecosystem services. So plant and animal species provide us with services in ways that you might not expect. So this plant and animal species nga present in our ecosystem, na siya makahatag ni siya or maka-provide ni siya mga services nga in a ways nga dili nato gi-expect. So for example, those that live in streams help to purify the flowing water, and trees and other forest plants produce oxygen without which we could not survive. So kung kani nga mga trees and other forest, so ga-produce ni sila oxygen. So if walay oxygen, 'di ba? We can't survive. And the other thing is earthworms aerate topsoil that we use for growing our food. So kaning atong mga earthworms, if mahimo siya po ni silang extinct, dili siya po dako ni sila mahatag nato nga tabang for aerating our topsoil for us to grow our food for our like sa atong crops and vegetables. So these are vital ecosystem services provided free of charge. So free nga gihatag ni sa mga species in our ecosystem. So as we are the one nga maka benepisyo sa mahatag nga services sa atong ecosystem. We should avoid hastening the extinction of this species. When I will go to the concept 8.3 entitled How Do Humans Accelerate Species Extinction and Degradation of Ecosystem Services? 8.3 The greatest threats to species and ecosystem services are loss or degradation of habitat, harmful invasive species, human population growth, pollution, climate change, and over-exploitation. So, let's break this down. First is the loss or degradation of habitat. So, degradation of habitat, like sa atong example of this, itong ipang-convert ang atong tropical rainforest for industrialization. So, in that way, na-degrade na nato ang atong mga puloy-an sa mga species. And other thing is harmful invasive species. Or katong mga species nga dili native diri sa ato makadaot gyapon to sila sa mga native species. Like sa gi-discuss ni ma'am before nga dili pwede masagol ang native species sa native kay pwedeng or posibleng ma-extinct ang atong native kay pildihon sila. So example of this is the germelina tree nga kani sila nagpagawas og allelopathic substances nga ikadaot sa ubang species. So as what we have observed, if na germelina sa ka area, most species nga matubo ra dito is germelina because as what I've said, germelina is naa siya allelopathic substances nga dili pwede hindi mga makadaot sa mga laing mga species. And we have the human population growth. So nagkadugay nagkadaghan ng mga tao sa kalibutan ug dungan pod nagkadaghan ug nagkadako ang mga pagipang kinahanglan usa na ani ang pagpabalay paghimo og balay. And one thing is asa sila mukuha og materials. So sa ato gihapong ecosystem sa atong rainforest or sa atong mga forest, which resulted into climate change kay magkawala ang atong tropical rainforest kay gigamit to build homes, and the other thing is to build infrastructures, or ang uban gi-convert into agricultural areas. And because of atong tropical rainforest nagagamay, so dili na niya ma-absorb tanan nga carbon dioxide ug kini mosaka sa atmosphere to form greenhouse gases. And remember nga greenhouse gases is not good. That's why we have climate change. And as what we have experienced today, bali ng inita, and as ang adlaw alas 8 or alas 9 pa lang gani sa buntag, bali ng inita. It's because of the climate change. And or it's because of the climate change or because of the greenhouse gases nga natipok na sa atong atmosphere. Because as what I've said, if magkadaghan ang greenhouse gases sa atong atmosphere, dili na siya maayo kay mo na siya maka-cause og so much nga kainit. And the other thing is the over-exploitation. Let us define over-exploitation first. So over-exploitation means to exploit something such as our natural resources to an excessive degree. So over-exploitation is the kanang sobra natong pagpahimulos sa atong natural resources, and which can possibly harm our biodiversity. Like for example is the intensive agriculture. as currently practiced in Europe, that are centered in monoculture with minimization of associated species. So this system offers high yields of single products but depend on high rates of used fertilizers and pesticide. So the maintenance of high productivity over time is unlikely to be unsustainable in the face of disturbance, disease, and soil erosion and the use of natural capital. And example of this is water. So loss of habitat is the single greatest threat to species. So remember the HIPPCO, or the habitat destruction, degradation, and fragmentation, invasive non-native species, population growth and increasing use of resources, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation. That is all for the HIPPCO. So, biodiversity researchers summarize the most important direct cost of extinction and threats to ecosystem services using the acronym HIPPCO. So, according to the biodiversity researchers, the greatest threat to wild species is habitat loss, degradation, and fragmentation. So specifically, deforestation in tropical areas is the greatest threat to species and the ecosystem services they provide, followed by the destruction and degradation of coastal wetlands and coral reefs. So, and the other thing is the plowing of grasslands for planting of crops and the pollution of streams, lakes, and oceans. So many of them found nowhere else on Earth, are especially vulnerable to extinction when their habitats are destroyed, degraded, or fragmented because they have nowhere else to go. So this is why the collection of islands that made up the U.S. state of Hawaii is America's extinction capital, with 63% of its species at risk because ilahang puloy-anan is gi-destroy or na-degrade. So, wala na sila laing mapuy-an. That's why they become a threat to the species. So, we have here a habitat fragmentation. It occurs when a large intact area of habitat such as forest or natural grassland is divided, typically by roads, logging operations, crop fields, and urban development, into smaller, isolated patches or habitat island. So this process can reduce tree covers in forest and block animal migration routes, and it can also divide populations of a species into increasingly isolated small groups that are vulnerable to predators, competitor species, disease, and catastrophic events such as storms and fires. In addition, habitat fragmentation creates barriers that limit the abilities of some species to disperse and colonize areas, to locate adequate food supplies, and to find mates. So, we have moved disruptive species into some ecosystems. So, in 1600s, English settlers brought highly beneficial European honeybees to North America to provide honey, and we now use them to pollinate most major crops. But the problem is that in their new habitats, some introduced species do not face the natural predators, competitors, parasites, viruses, bacteria, or fungi that had helped to control their numbers. in their original habitats. This can allow such non-native species to crowd out populations of many non-native species, disrupt ecosystem services, cause human health problems, and lead to economic losses. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or the USFWS, about 48% of the species listed as endangered in the United States and 95% of those in the U.S. state of Hawaii are on the list because of threats from invasive species. In 1930s, the extremely aggressive Argentina fire ant was accidentally introduced into the United States, probably on shiploads of lumber or coffee imported from South America. These ants have no natural predators in the southern United States, where they have spread rapidly by land and water. They can float, so they have also stowed away on exported goods and shipping containers and have invaded other countries including China, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Australia. So when these ants invade an area, they can wipe out as much as 90% of native ant populations, which we depend on for ecosystem services such as enrichment of topsoil, dispersal of plant seeds, and control of pest species such as flies, bedbugs, and cockroaches. If you walk on fire ant mound, as many as 100,000 ants might swarm out of their nest to attack you with painful burning stings. They have killed deer fawns, ground nesting birds, baby sea turtles, newborn calves, pets, and at least 80 people who were allergic to their venom. So, widespread pesticide spraying in the 1950s and 1960s temporarily reduced fire ant population. But this chemical warfare actually hastened the advance of the rapidly multiplying fire ants by reducing populations of many native ant species. Even worse, it promoted the development of genetic resistance to pesticides in the fire ants through natural selection. So, pest management scientist Scott Ludwig has reported some success in using tiny parasitic flies to reduce fire ant populations. So, this scientist Scott Ludwig nag-report na siya nahimo nga success using the parasitic flies to reduce the fire ant populations. But more research is needed to see how well this approach will work. Other troublesome invasive species include Bernese pythons, African pythons, and several species of boa constrictors, all of which have ended up in the Florida Everglades. About 1 million of these snakes imported from Africa and Asia have been sold as pets. Some buyers, after learning that these reptiles do not make good pets, have dumped them into the wetlands of Everglades. So the Bernese python can live 20 to 25 years, growing as long as 5 meters or 16 feet. It can weigh as much 77 kilograms or 170 pounds and be as big around as a telephone pole. Pythons are hard to find and kill, and they produce rapidly. They have huge appetites and feed at night, eating a variety of birds and mammals such as rabbits, foxes, raccoons, and wild-tailed deer. and occasionally other reptiles, including the American alligator, which is a keystone species in the Everglades ecosystem. They seize their prey with their sharp teeth, wrap themselves around the prey, and squeeze them to death before feeding on them. They have also been known to eat pet cats and dogs and other small farm animals and geese. So, research indicates that predation by these snakes is altering the complex food webs and ecosystem services of the Everglades. The researchers say that the Bornese python population in Florida's wetlands cannot be controlled. So, in 2014, researchers Shannon Pittman and Kristen Hart found that trapping and moving the snakes from one area to another is not a viable control strategy because the snakes have the ability to return to areas where they were captured. So, these two researchers, Shannon Pittman and Kristen Hart, found that uh, pagkulong and pag-move sa snakes from one area to another or from here to other area is not a kanang viable control or not the solution nga control strategy because the snakes have the ability to return to the areas where they were captured. Mobalik ra Japon ni nga mga snake kung asa sila na kuha or gagikan. So, some researchers warned that the Bornese python could spread to other swampy wetlands in the southern half of the United States. Bioinvaders also affect aquatic systems and are blamed for about two-thirds of all fish extinction in the United States since 1990. So the Great Lakes of North America have been invaded by at least 180 non-native species, and the number keeps rising. One of the biggest threats is the fish-killing sea lamprey, which has depleted some Great Lakes population of important sport species such as lake trout. Another another invader is a thumbnail-sized mollusk called the zebra mussel, which reproduces rapidly and has known natural enemies in the Great Lakes. It has displaced other mussel species and depleted the food supply for some native aquatic species. So the mussels have also caused massive or economic damages by clogging irrigation, which is the irrigation pipes, shutting down calling water intake pipes for power plants, and city water supplies, jamming ship ruders, and growing in large masses on boat hulls, piers, and other exposed aquatic surfaces. And other thing, thumbnail-sized mollusk is also called the zebra mussel. So that's it for my part, and the continuation will be discussed by my co-member.
So, good day everyone. I am Mark Guar from Group 3 and I am reporting my topic, Chapter 8. So, the topic is about prevention is the best way to reduce threats from invasive species. Fund, Funding an intensive research program to identify the major characteristic of successful invaders, the type of ecosystem that are vulnerable to invaders, and the natural predators, parasites, bacteria, and viruses that could be used to control the population of established invaders. So, funding intensive research. So, so we need to research to have a research program to identify the characteristic of invaders such as predators, parasite, and bacteria. It is also we need to research about it to control the increasing the of established invaders. So greatly increasing ground surveys and satellites observation to track the invasive plant and animal species and continuing development of better models for predicting they will spreading that harmful effects they might be have. So also it is good to have a survey so we know that what harmful effect of extinction of species in the earth. So aside from ana kinahanglan po nato siya i-predict kung unsay mahitabo panalitan kanang inanang types nga species mawala ug unsay dalang epekto ana niya sa atong especially sa atong earth if mawala na siya or ginatawag nato siya og extinction of species. So identifying the harmful invader species and establishing international treaties banning their transfer from one country to another, as is now done endangered species while stepping up inspection of imported goods to enforce such bans. So kinahanglan po na to. So especially kung mo travel ka sa one place to another, so magdala tag mga buhi. So dili mangutan ng buhi nga kanang vulnerable siya nga anang butanga. Tungod kay naay mga such as mga kanang mga buhi nga dili dili compatible nga palitan ng aning such animals nga di compatible nga mabuhian ng init. So kinahanglan na siya ng bugnaw ra kung imo na siyang mo transfer ka na ang dalang epekto ana niya posibleng mamatay. So or kung di man gyud mamatay ah or mo adapt siya ng kuan managhan pod. So og sige imuon nimo ni then ang ubang species po mga wala. So thus educating public about effects of releasing exotic plants and pets in the environment near they live. So kuan po siya kinahanglan po nato i-edukar ang mga tawo unsay mga epekto kung mo-release sila mga kanang makahilong nga tanom o mga buhi nga dili partikular nga nagpuyoan ang lugara. So uh, environment where they live because it will bring harm magdala siya kadaot sa ato dili lang sa ato kundi dili po sa mga mananap nga atong papuyon anang temporaryo nga lugara. So population growth, high rates and of resource use, pollution and climate change all contribute to species extinction. So ngano mang population growth affected also the species extinction. Why? Because tungod sa nagkataas ang population sa nato, so kinahanglan po nato siya mo extend og lugar nga asa nato sila papuyon. So kung magsige tag extend, palitan ang uban mamaling sa bukid. So daghang mga animals particular nga puyoan ang lugar ang apektaran tungod kay siyempre mo kwantag deforestation kay kinahanglan mo nato paputlo ng mga kahoy para lang mo establish tag mga balay nga kapuy-an sa mga bagong sa mga tawo nga kana ganing baling daghana na. So kung inanang so enigma distract sila maguba ilang shelter. So kinahanglan na po nila mo transfer to new environment. So kung wala na example na atong deer sa Negros ug mawala to siya. So moingog kinahanglan na po natong moadto sa laing country ay sa laing lugar para lang makit-an to siya ang inatong type of deers. So dako kayong epekto ang population growth sa species extinction tungod kay ah kung siging kuan ang sige rang og establish og mga new houses para ra kapuy-an sa atong mga tawo so affected gyapon ang panato tungod kay kinahanglan mo gud nato mo expand. So kung sige tag-expand, so maapektaran gyud nato ang kuan nilang puloy-anan plus mga mananap. So next is the high rate resource use. So palitan na lang sa kahoy, kinahanglan magtukod tagbalay, kinahanglan mo tag kahoy. So kung atong pamutlo ng kahoy kalagmitan mamuyuan ang kahoy mga langgam. So kung atong putlo na, so kanang mga partikular nga puyo-an langgam mamalhin. So kanang lugar na especially sa birds nga puyo dia mo extinct na siya tungod kay nagkawala na pollution. Pollution usa po na siya sa naghatag og species extinction para na sa mga suba karon. Kanang sa unang panahon di ba daghan na siya namagoy mga puyo ng isda. So kung sa sige naglabayan, mahimong toxic ang suba. Kung mahimo ng toxic, so siyempre maapektaran ang pagpuyo sa isda, mga matay. Kung wala na isda ng particular nga lugar, siyempre wala na diyan ang extinction. So aside from it, species extinction also affect the climate change. Kay kung magkahurot ang species anang lugar, ah da, kwan siya ning also affect kana sa growth na niya. So ato da sa iyang mga past project, past and projected human population growth and rising rates of human resources used per person have greatly expanded human ecology footprint. People have eliminated, degraded, and fragmented vast area wildlife habitat as they spread all over the planet, using resources and at increasing rates wherever they land. This has caused the extinction of human species. So, kita lang daan to extinction of many species lang daan. Kay kung itong kinanglan og ato mo just like I said ganiya expand para lang sa kapuy-an sa mga tawo. So kung sige mag-spread all out siya tanan all the world using the resources mo increase at increasing rate, it also cause the extinction of many species. So aside from pollution also threatens some species with extinction has been shown by uh, unintended effects of certain pesticide. So the USFWS estimated that pesticide also kill more than 67 million birds and 6 to 14 million fish each year. And they threaten about 20% of countries' endangered and threatened species. So, baunsan dako kayong factors ang pesticide sa mga langgam. Palitan na sa mga bunga, kalagmitan magugano sa mga langgam, mga bunga rango sa kahoy. So kalagmitan na to is sprayan magunato na siya para lang dili duulon og mga insekto mo na to spray o ng mga pesticide. So aside na dili lang mga peste mo mapektahan apel na po ng mga langgam nga moapel pagkaon ana. During the 1950s and 1960s, population of fish-eating birds such as osprey, brown pelicans, and bald eagles plummeted. The concentration of chemicals derived from pesticide DDT was magnified as it moved up through their food web. The chemical made these top predator birds eggshell and so fragile that they could not reproduce successfully. So pollution threatens pollution threatens during 1950s to 1960s of fish-eating birds such as osprey, brown pelicans, bald eagles plummeted. Because of pesticide, this type of species could not reproduce successfully. So the illegal killing of capturing and selling of wild species threatens biodiversity. Some protected species are illegally killed or poached for their valuable parts or are sold live to collectors. Globally, this illegal trade in wildlife brings in an average of at least. So, you can see in this picture, so DDT. So, DDT means is dichloro definite trichloro trichloroethane. It is an insecticide used in agriculture. So, ppm na po ang pasabutan na parts per million. So, as you can see in the picture, number one is DDT in fish eating birds or ospreys. So, it is 25 part per million. So, muna yung pinakadako nga ma extinction due to insecticide. Next is the DDT in large fish that is 2 part per million. So affected gyapon ang large fish. So aside man gud sa mag-catch ay kana mangwa og isda dili kay gigal nay uban nga mogamit og mga dinamita para lang makakuha. So aside ana affected gyapon ang mga dili lang mga dagkong isda, apil na po ng mga gagmay isda na siya diri sa pan. So ang mga gagmay isda makuhaan siya dito 0.5 per part per million. So ang pinakagamay nga DDT is the zooplankton. So ang zooplankton magod is di na kay siya affected tungod kinana siya sa kinaubsan or pinalamlang bahin sa dagat that contributor siya 0.04 part per million. Then ang last is DDT in water 0.0003 part per million.
So good day everyone, especially to you, ma'am. So today I'm going to discuss about honeybee losses, and also for a search where for causes. So first, each winter since 2006, RO-R5% of the US population of European honeybees has disappeared because of colony collapse disorder. This problem also occurs in part of Europe, China, and India. Scientific research has found a number of possible reasons for this decline, including, so first reason here we have the varroa. So the varroa, this is a pesticide and parasitic insect that can waken and kill honeybee adult by feeding on their blood and larvae. It has killed millions of bees since it appeared in the US in 987, probably from infected bees imported from South America. Okay, so meaning this harmful there's this harmful interaction between viruses and fungi that can kill bees by weakening their immune system. That's one of the reasons. Okay, so let's move to another part, which is let's move to another reason, which is pesticides. As honeybees forage for nectar, they can come into contact with insecticides that they sometimes carry back to their hives. So some research indicate that several types of widely used neonicotinoids, which are derived from nicotine, that tobacco plants use as a natural insecticide. So meaning these pesticides are deliberately incorporated into food plant, so they end up in the nectar and pollen that our bees take back to their colonies. Just like, for example, exposure to trace amount of these chemicals can disrupt the nervous system of bees, of course. And second, decrease their ability to find their way back to their hives. And last is weaken their immune system. So this example is the reason why honeybees sometimes they carry back to their hives. So we have third research here, which is stress and poor nutrition. So stress and poor nutrition can weaken the bees' immune system and make them more vulnerable to death due to mites, viruses, fungi, and pesticides. So, example of this, it's because for some of the bees, just like we just say, the bees that are transported with a long distance. Okay, that's one of the example. So, lack of natural foraging areas. So, widespread conversion of grassland to crop field has dramatically reduced the diversity of nature plants on which bees naturally thrive. Meaning of this is the growing consensus among bee is that um, likely causes of colony collapse disorder. Of course, um, this is one of the example of foraging lack of natural foraging areas. And lastly, we have here a critical thinking. So the question here is, can you think of some ways in which commercial beekeeper lessen one or more of the threats? So I have here an example or um, one of the best way among a several way about lesson on how to lessen threats of honeybee losses. So I have here beekeeper educations and collaboration. Why? Because this continuous education and knowledge sharing among beekeepers, um, they definitely play a crucial role in combating honeybee or honeybee losses. Beekeepers should I mean, beekeepers should stay updated on the latest research, best management practices, and technological advancements. So, of course, if we do have a lot of knowledge, we can actually provide thoughts on how we can lessen on what way in the way on how we can lessen the honeybee losses. All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much. That is all about my topic. So I hope you guys can to understand.
Hi mom, good day. I am Alvin Rivera. I uh I am a group I am Alvin Rivera, group 3. So I am the next presenter. So this is my report. Figure 8:11. A poacher in South Africa killed this critically endangered northern white rhinoceros for its two horns. This species is now extant in the wild. So, there's a question here. What would you say if you could talk to the poacher who killed these animals? If um if I'm given chance to talk to the poacher who killed these animals, and um I'll say that we all we not only stop we won't only stop the killing by that means we not only stop the killing by protecting species like the rhino, rhino, rhinoceros, um, rhinoceros, the ground, but also work wildlife trafficking and stop the demand. So this example, like that's one. Around the globe, the legal and illegal trade in wild species for use as pets in a huge and a very profitable business. Many owners of wild pets do not know that for every live animal captured and sold in the market, many others are killed in a dying transits. So buyers of wild animals might also be unaware that some imported exotic animals carry disease such as hantavirus, evolved virus, Asian bird flu, herpes B virus carried by most adult monkeys. This disease can spread quite easily from pets to their owners and to the other people. So uh there's mm, na ibang mga buyers sa mga wild animals that wala dili sila aware nga kana ilang mga gipang palit nga mga imported nga animals or kana ilang gipang nga ilang gipamalit nga na nay sakit, such as hantavirus, virus, Asian bird flu, herpes virus. Kanang mga sakita is kanang dali kayong mukalat, dali ra kana ganing quite easily dali kayong mukalat sa mga animals, then kanang mga animals, and then makuan na pud nato sa mga tawo. So a rising demand for bushment threatens some African species. For centuries, indigenous people in much of West and Central Africa have sustainable hunted wildlife for bushment as a source of food. But in the last 3 decades, bushment hunting in some areas has skyrocketed as hunters have tried to provide food for rapidly growing populations. Yes, uh, kani nga kuan kay sa uh, sige silag panguan sa mga ah, wild wildlife animals kay kanang iharong ilang makuan si kanang ganing what do we call that, ilahang pagkaon. But in the last 3 decades, bushmeat hunting in some areas has skyrocketed as hunters have tried to provide food for rapidly growing populations. So here, figure 8.12. Bashment such as the severed head of the endangered lowland gorilla and the Congo is consumed as a source of protein by local people in parts of West and Central Africa, and it's said in a national and international marketplace and served in some restaurants where wealthy patrons regard gorilla meat as a source of status and power. And this statement kay kana ganing katong mga gorilla kay ilang pangwaan og ulo din ilang ibang baligya sa mga like for example kani baluoy kay tanan ang mga kuan, um, ilang ibang baligya sa mga marketplace and spread some restaurant where wealthy patrons regard gorilla meat as a source of status and power. Ano siya, oh. So, the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, is trying and reduce unsustainable hunting for bushmeat in some areas of Africa by introducing alternative sources of food, including farm fish. They're also showing villagers how to breed large rodents such as cane rats as a source of protein. Yes, ang mga US agency kay ni try pud sila og kana ganing ila ay naa sila lain nga mura ganing lain nga kuan nga mga kana ganing ilang makuan sa pagkaon kanang pagkuan og mga isda, and then tuduan po sila how to breed large rodents such as cane rats. So a disturbing message from the birds. Approximately 70% of the world's more than 10,000 known bird species are declining in the numbers, and much of this decline is related to human activities. According to a 2011 study, State of the Birds, almost one third of the more than 800 bird species in the United States are endangered. In addition, the population of 40% of the world's water birds are in decline because of the global loss of wetlands. After habitat loss, the intentional or accidental introduction of non-active species such as bird-eating rats is the second greatest danger, affecting about 28% of the world's threatened birds. That's all.
Good day, ma'am. I am Johannes Tumapon, and this is my report. How can we sustain wild species and the ecosystem services they provides? Concept 8.4. We can reduce species extinction and sustain ecosystem services by establishing and informing national environmental laws and international treaties, and by creating and protecting wildlife sanctuaries. By implementing laws and guidelines, we can protect our marine sanctuaries by this, because this is the most important thing that we could protect our sanctuaries. A lot of sanctuaries don't have a established laws, and people people will kanang abusar sa mga bad doings, like nga dili ra mabantayan ang mga sanctuaries ug mapabayaan ra ang mga sanctuaries tungod sa mga inana. Maong i-implement gyud og tagaan og bili ay kanang higpitan ng mga balaod para sa mga inana, para sa mga wildlife dito sa mga marine sanctuaries. And the international treaties and the national laws can help to protect species. Some countries have strong laws that help to sustain wild species and ecosystem services. Several international treaties and convention also help to protect endangered and threatened wild species. Um, Dili ra siguro some countries ang maka-experience og mga strong laws ani, but ni-adapt na po ni sa Pilipinas, kay ang like marine sanctuaries ug makitaan ka nga mga gamit ka diha, manghilabot ka diha nga na diha sa sulod sanctuaries, nakay penalty og penalty sa imong atubangon, kinahanglan atubangon nimo kana mobayad ka sa imong mga sala, like mga nana mo nang the best yun siyang i-implement nga laws for the wild species in a in wildlife sa marine sanctuaries. So the illegal commits participating government, it's reduce the global rates of diversity loss and equitable sharing of benefits for use the world's genetic resources. This includes effort to prevent our control and spread the ecological harm for invasive species. And like mga organization like mga youth, kinahanglan mo participate sa government nga mas mo encourage mulantaw sa mga biodiversity sa alang palibot, para ang mga bata aware sa tanan, o kanang atong mga sumusunod nga generation ma-preserve na nato para nila ma-maintain nato ang ilahang pagkadaghanon, o ma-maintain nato yung ilahang pagkanindot sa kinaiyahan. And by the way, ang balaod nga ga-establish o will establish aning atong biodiversity is ang 1973 Endangered Species Act. It allows to protect all the habitats as well as species. Give joint authority to Fish and Wildlife Service and NOOA fisheries. So this is the most established laws and strong laws in our country.
So my name is Rachel Marchel and I am the next reporter. So the US Endangered Species Act. So the Endangered Species Act of 1973 was designed to identify and protect endangered species in the United States and abroad. This act is probably the most successful and far-reaching environmental law adopted by any nation, which has made it controversial. So, this act was designed to protect critically imperiled species from extinction as a consequence of economic growth and development untempered by adequate concern and conservation. So, according to Johannes said that no, there are huh? There are act of laws that our country that can protect our country. These are allows protection for all species, protects habitats as well as species, and gives joint authority to Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA fisheries. So most biologists insist that the act has not been a failure and indeed is one of the world's most successful environmental laws for several reasons. A national pool
We can establish wildlife refuges and other protected areas. Wildlife refuges and protected areas are crucial for preserving and maintaining biodiversity on our planet. This area provides a safe environment for species to breed, live, and thrive without human interference. They are also important for scientific research and education about different species and ecosystem. To establish wildlife refuges and protected areas, a number of steps must be taken. These include identifying suitable location, acquiring the necessary land, and implementing management strategies that promote conservation. This may involve creating buffer zones around the protected areas, removing invasive species and monitoring wildlife population. There are many benefits to establish wildlife refuges and protected areas. These are provide opportunity for tourism and recreation which can benefit local economies. They also help to mitigate climate change by conserving carbon sink and preserving valuable ecosystems that sequester carbon. Overall, establishing wildlife refuges and protected areas is an important step in preserving biodiversity and protecting our planet natural resources. So there's another also like farm or other protecting areas like seed banks, botanical gardens, and wildlife farm. Wildlife farm can help to protect species like seed banks. As seed banks are facilities that preserve and store the genetic materials of plant in order to protect and conserve plant biodiversity. This is important for several reasons. First, you need to bank can help to protect against extinction as they provide a backup of genetic material that can be used to reintroduce endangered species back into the wild. Secondly, seed bank can help to develop new varieties of crops that are more resistant to pests and diseases, which can be instrumental in food security to ensure humanity has enough to eat. And here's a botanical garden. Botanical gardens are laid collection of plants from another world, like They are important for conservation because they provide a place where a rare and endangered plants can be housed and protected. They are also important for research and education as they give scientists and the general public access to rare and unusual plant species. So wildlife farms are faculty that breed, raise, and protect the endangered species. These are farms are important because they help to increase the population of endangered species and provide the source of genetic material that can be used to reintroduce species back into the wild. Additionally, wildlife farm can be also provide income through tourism and sustainable wildlife management practice. All of these measures can be help to protect conserved species, and they are important in the global effort to protect biodiversity. Zoos and aquariums can play an important role in protecting some species. Here are some ways in which zoos and aquariums help to protect species. First is conversation breeding programs. Zoos and aquariums often keep endangered species in captivity and breed them in order to support populations that are decreasing in the wild. These breeding programs can help to reintroduce endangered species in their native habitats and restore their population. Second is education. Zoos and aquariums can be powerful tools in education the public about the importance of the biodiversity and the threats that many species face by promoting conservation, conservation awareness, and education of visitors about the challenges faced by different species. Zoos and aquariums can be encouraged effort to protect the preserve these species in the wild. However, it is important to note that not all zoos and aquariums are created equal when it comes to conservation. Some institutions have a better track record for conservation efforts than others. It is also important to insecure the zoos and aquariums are threatening the animals in their care humanely and providing appropriate overall. While zoos or aquariums are not as suitable for protecting species in the wild, they can overall, while zoos and aquariums are not a substitute for protecting species in the wild, they can serve as important tools in conservation efforts for more species.